Hello, SecUnits. Welcome back to the Crisis of Readers. This week we're going to be talking about Murderbot books 1 to 4. I'm your host, Mac.
And I'm Ollie.
And welcome back.
Yes, we're here. We're talking about Murderbots books 1 through 4, which are just really novellas.
Yeah.
It's really the equivalent of probably 2 books in terms of content, which is kind of refreshing because I feel like we read a lot of books,
a lot of long
books. I've been reading a lot of books recently for a variety of things, so I've been wiped out.
But you've been fulled up on books.
The Murderbot Diaries are by Martha Wells, and Martha Wells has been a sci-fi and fiction fantasy writer since her first fantasy novel was published in 1993 called The Element of Fire. She is known for her most recent series, The Murderbot Diaries, and she has done some media tie-in writing for Star Wars, Stargate, and Magic the Gathering. She's also won a Nebula Award, Hugo Awards, Locus Awards, an Alex Award, and a Dragon Award. And her work has appeared on the World Fantasy Award ballot and the Philip K. Dick Award ballot, the BFFA Award ballot, the USA Today bestsellers list, and the Sunday Times bestseller list, as well as the New York Times bestseller list. And she's the member of a Texas Literary Hall of Fame, and her books have been published in 30 languages. So that's cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's really
And now
cool.
Murderbots is a TV show on Apple TV.
Yeah. It's partly why, we're trying to be topical. That's why we're
Yes. Speaking of topical, this is an offshoot, but the book that we picked for book club on the Fable app is being turned into a movie. So we were accidentally topical. So if you want to do
That's really exciting. Love
maybe we can also do an episode on that book and release it around the time the movie ever gets released down the line.
That sounds good.
But
eventually.
Yeah. So we're in our non-spoiler section. So what should we start off with?
Yeah.
Kick us off.
So, yeah. I don't know. So this was I know you'd read half the first book previously, right? But this was your first time sort of reading all of them.
So I read the whole first book because I was doing it through the library, and the problem with the library is that I fear half the time I get my rentals at a time I can't read them. So I had read the first book and I rented I had put my hold in for the second book, and then I think the second book came when I was like deep in the troves of finishing that paper that I was working on. So I was like, I don't have time for this. So I never continued. But this is my first time reading all through books 1 through 4.
Yeah. I also think I read probably them all through the library app. Libby. Live, Love, Libby. For the first time. But at this point I now own all the audiobooks, and they have like the dramatic adaptation, I think it's called, and it has like sound effects and different voices, so it's very fun.
That's cool.
So at this point I listen to those audiobooks probably like at least once or twice a year. Especially because they're short, so they're pretty good for like you can listen to a pretty much a whole book just like on one drive if you're going up.
Yeah. So that's fair. I do.
Yeah.
I think I could do these as audiobooks because, I'm like the number one audiobook hater. Not for others, just for myself. I can't do it. The words start just becoming sounds and they don't comprehend in my brain. So.
I love it, but I am a big audiobook I've always been a big audiobook person, though. Yes. Clearly, as I think like half of these we get on, I'm like, I listen to the
I just feel like I wish I could do audiobooks because I feel like the amount of books that I can take in a day would increase so incredibly fast. But I just like
Yeah.
there is like most of the books I want to read I can't handle on audiobook. Like my brain, they start speaking. I was reading like the Buffalo Hunter recently, and I tried using the audiobook first before I bought the actual book, and the narrator said 3 sentences, and I went, "You haven't spoken English once yet."
Yeah. It definitely is. I don't usually listen to audiobooks, so I haven't already listened to the book. If I haven't already read the book before, because I do struggle. I'm listening to Red Rising right now, and I've never read Red Rising. Anyway, it's it's difficult. I've re-listened to some sections because I'm like, what happened? I don't know what's happening.
But I've been so torn because like I have the Kindle. We bought the Kindles super cheap. And at one point I got Kindle Unlimited for my birthday, so I had that for a year, which was nice.
Yeah.
But then I like don't have Kindle Unlimited anymore, and I low-key am trying to move away from Amazon. Like I don't use Goodreads or anything like that anymore. But now my e-reader is an Amazon e-reader, so if I want to buy anything on e-reader, I have to go through Amazon. And I've been thinking, like, should I sell it and get a Kobo? But, like, is Kobo even any better? Because it's owned by Rakuten, like the TV company, and the, like, they have, like, a few, they're, like, an Asian, like, company, and they have, like, a lot of subsidiaries. And Kobo is one of them. And I'm like, I haven't even done enough research to know if Kobo and Rakuten are even ethical. And then I'm like, there's no ethical consumerism. There's no, what is it? There's no, like...
There's no ethical consumption under
exactly.
capitalism.
So what's the point?
A theme in Murderbot.
I'm Murderbot. I'm confused.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I also have this. To be fair, I download a lot of books onto the Kindle that are not Amazon books because I'll just download them and send them to the Kindle. I think that Fable lets you buy ebooks through them.
Ooh. They do. You're right. I should be looking at Fable.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, maybe that's
I actually
a
think
good
I have
solution.
Fable credit.
Hell yeah.
Can I send them to
Heck yeah.
I think we can say hell. I think that's okay. On the approved list. I'm trying to see if can you send? I think you probably. This is not something I need to do right now. All right, but yeah. So this is my first time reading them all through, and I have interesting feelings about them. I think, in the sense that I think because they're short novellas, I can get through them and I like them enough. But I think if this turned into a full novel, I would not finish it.
That's interesting. Yeah, because you haven't gotten to the full length novel yet. Because there is one in the series that's actually, it's not a long novel, but it is a full length novel.
Now that I'm like done the first 4 books, I will finish everything in the series. Like that's definitely going to happen. I'm just waiting for the library hold to come off of the full length novel now. But like the first 4, I feel like there wasn't enough. I feel like there was a lot of travel time happening at points where I was like, I'm not in it. Like I don't care.
That's fair, I think. I do think some of the strength of these books is that they are shorter novellas. And because it lets you hear like sort of a short contained story about what Murderbot's up to, that I think that in the longer novel you start losing. I'm trying to remember if the longer novel has one of the parts I like, which is you get like I think the longer novel has some more world building, which I enjoyed, but I enjoyed it I think more because I had more buy-in from the first few books.
That's fair.
No, I will say I feel like it's a very accessible type of sci-fi that like you can get into the sci-fi aspects of it, but if you're someone who only a little bit cares about sci-fi, you can also read it without being too bogged down in the like sci-fi-ness of the whole thing.
Yeah. What I do think is fun about the novellas is that it makes you feel like you're watching a singular episode of some type of TV show, which is a very heavy part of what Murderbot is. And it's not really a spoiler because I think in the first like page, Murderbot is
like how
Murderbot's like, so I tapped my entertainment feed.
Murderbot, I guess we should give like maybe a brief, not, I think most people probably know what Murderbot's about. Let's give like a very brief synopsis of what the books are.
Let me read the first one for All Systems Go. Because that's usually the best.
All Systems Read.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Listen.
Yes, that is the best. I know. No,
Okay. The synopsis of All Systems Read is, in a corporation-dominated space-faring... Sorry. Whoa. That was like 4 hyphenated words all at once. In a corporate-dominated space-faring future, planetary missions must be approved and supplied by the company. For their own safety, exploratory teams are accompanied by company-supplied security androids. But in a society where contracts are awarded to the lowest bidder, safety isn't a primary concern. On a distant planet, a team of scientists is conducting surface tests, shadowed by their company-supplied droid, a self-aware SecUnit that has hacked its own governor module and refers to itself, though never out loud, as Murderbot. Scornful of humans, Murderbot wants to be left alone long enough to figure out who it is, but when a neighboring mission goes dark, it's up to the scientists and Murderbot to get to the truth.
Woo!
So.
Yeah. That's it, yeah. And that's basically what the first book is. It's like, basically, it entirely takes place on that one planet and is about this mining expedition, but he basically has to save the crew that he's there with.
Yes. Murderbot is
but...
me. I am Murderbot. I think that's the funnest thing about Murderbot is that they're like so relatable.
They are. That is one of the strengths of the book, is that Murderbot is such a relatable character.
Yeah. Like, you think it would be weird to be reading from like a robot or like artificial intelligence perspective, but they're so relatable. I regularly forget that they're a android until they remind me they are.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of my favorite parts about this, and this is, I guess, a little techie, I quite like that Murderbot is not just like a robot, that in the lore, Murderbot is android, which means that they're at least partially organic, so like the thinking is human. Mm-hmm. I don't remember if it's in the first 4 books, but I don't really think it's a spoiler. It's just sort of world building. The whole concept of how the SecUnits started getting made was basically like war veterans who had really, really horrific injuries. The synthetic elements of SecUnits were used as like very advanced prosthetics for like veterans, and then eventually it kind of got like, it evolved and then into these security units, and the organic tissue is just clone tissue. Mm-hmm. But I liked that because I have a thing, which is maybe because of my husband, which is that I do not like when the AI is a whole ass person. Because I'm like, maybe it's because I'm like a little skeptical, and I don't like it. I don't love AI. Which is like, I'm like, AI is not thinking, it's pattern reading, so it can sound like human, but it's not actually having human emotions. So when you think from a AI perspective, I'm like, then AI's not thinking. Yeah. There's no thinking. Yeah. So I like that it wasn't just like I'm a bot and I have thoughts. It was like, oh no, this is like an organic, it's like an android, so it makes sense.
Yeah, no.
That there is some thought.
Definitely. It doesn't, I said AI mainly just because that's what comes to my brain, but I'm also hella anti-AI.
Yeah.
I refuse to use it, actually, in my day, ever. I have yet to use AI, guys. On purpose. Yeah. I'm sure I've accidentally used it when I'm, like, Google searching something. and Gemini is force feeding me AI generated results.
Gemini's ramming down your
But
throat.
I've never personally chose to use AI. And if you did, I'm not judging you. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah. I would agree with that. There's uses for AI, but it's just not. Large language models. This is a whole other thing. We don't love a large language model.
Yeah, there's also the
but
environmental concerns of making AI just a everyday use tool, and the amount of computing power that would require, and its carbon footprint on the earth.
Especially when you just don't need it for like most things. Like most things, you don't need a full AI to do.
You really don't.
So. Yeah. Especially not a ChatGPT, which almost every AI tool is just a wrapper for ChatGPT, basically. And like a large language model is good. Like this is what kills me. Like this is a whole other thing. Like large language models are natural language processing, which has a place, and the whole place is to understand human speech, and it's like analyzing human language. Very interesting, very cool. There's actual uses for it. But like we've published on a paper that used natural language processing in like our research specifically. So like there are full uses for it that are actually really great. It's just like it's not good at like math or telling you the truth necessarily all of the time, especially when it's as unstructured as something like as unstructured and unsupervised as something like ChatGPT is, where it's just basically like scraping the internet for anything and then feeding it back to you. That's why it like gives a lot of Reddit answers. That's like a big thing recently. People saw that most of the medical advice that ChatGPT gives you is straight out of Reddit. And that's obviously a problem.
Yeah. I mean, we did that paper, and we know how like data mining can pull some crazy stuff, and then if you don't sort it with like a very careful eye, then you're just gonna end up with like convoluted data. Our AI rants aside, I think they're fun books. I had fun with the first book specifically. I think what I really enjoy is the amount that Murderbot is just like a human and acts just like a human, but then disdains them. He's like, I hate humans. Human, like he takes like the human things about him and he's like, yeah, that's annoying. And then he takes the like android things about him and he's like, I wish humans were more like us. And I'm like, I fear like, you're unhappy with everything.
Yeah, they're like, all the humans are like messy and emotional. It is such fun. The standout thing for the Murderbot series truly is Murderbot as a character, and that is the part that ultimately drives this story. Like, I really love some of the world building that you do get eventually. There's actually some really cool political commentary within the books that is there if you want it. But it's pretty obvious, to be honest. I guess you can be stupid and not see it, but
it's pretty like, heavy-handed right from the beginning.
It's pretty clearly anti-capitalist, pretty much from the jump, which I always kind of love as a way of showing how corporations don't care about you, because they don't. And this was obviously like an extreme example of how unregulated capitalism will kill people, which it does. So, but yeah, so I like those parts. The ensemble cast is fun. I will say that I feel like you care about them to differing degrees. Like the cast of the first book comes back and ends up being more recurring, and you care about them more, I think, as time goes on. And then some of the other ones you care about, but I feel like I cared about some of the other ensembles in the other books more as extensions of Murderbot rather than as their own people. I cared because he cared that he didn't want them to die, and so them dying would have been emotionally difficult for them.
I think that's interesting because I think we were talking before. I don't remember if this made it into the actual before we started saying that this was the podcast or if it was in the 10-minute talk we had before. But we were talking about how we both didn't like the second book. We liked it the least out of all of the 4 first novellas. And I think it's interesting because when you said that, where you care about the ensemble cast more or less depending on the book, I think I care besides the first book, which I think the first book you are also experiencing Murderbot experiencing what it's like to be on a team when he has completely hacked his governor module. So it's it's their first time working through what that means for them and how that means that they interact. So I think you start having a soft spot because Murderbot starts having a soft spot. So it's kind of just
exactly
the natural progression of things. But I think the ensemble cast in the second book is the one I care about the most outside of the main ensemble cast from the first novella. So I think it's interesting because I didn't love that book story the most. And I think we can get into it in the spoiler section where I think that story was my least favorite of the 4. But I did specifically like that ensemble cast better.
Interesting. Is art in the second book or is it the third book?
Art is in the
I think
second
art's
book.
the second book.
Art is in the second book.
Okay, because I will say I adore art. I think art is so funny, and I think art, it's so interesting because art is fully an AI, which is interesting, but we do not see, we don't get art perspective. We get art through Murderbot, and I think that it is, you have the juxtaposition of how Murderbot, I think, feels less human sometimes around other humans, but then you have a being like art, and I think it makes Murderbot feel you see how Murderbot is more human actually around an entity like art, and it's actually a really interesting juxtaposition as he's kind of there. And then have you gone to the one where, I don't remember when this comes up, it says promise that, again, I think that this has come up in other episodes of the podcast, where if I read a series altogether, I have no idea when they start and
No,
end.
that's so fair. I do that too. It's just still fresh in my mind because I just finished reading them.
Yeah. Have you gotten to a point where Murderbot runs back into art another time and they're fighting?
No.
Okay. I won't talk about it because it's a great scene.
I do anticipate that they are going to run back into each other. And there's something that happens in the third book that I do need to unpack when we get to the spoiler section. Because it is a heavy spoiler, and I will not be saying it in this part. But yeah. Okay. I also think interesting. So I think a month ago, maybe a little bit more than a month ago, I posed Mac with the question of, if you fall in love with a robot that you think is, if you perceive a robot to be your gender, despite the robot having no gender specific traits, are you gay? Was the question. Now we don't have to get into
if you're in love with the robot.
If you're in love with the robot. Fall in love with a robot that you perceive to be your gender despite the robot having no gender specific traits. Are you gay? Now, that aside, that's not what we're going to discuss here because we've already discussed this to no end, and my answer is maybe. But I think it's interesting because I am now reading Murderbot after the show has come out, and they've assigned Murderbot a male presenting face. Mm-hmm. And I found that is impacting the way I see Murderbot in my head, and I would wonder what the experience would be like if I didn't have that beforehand.
Yeah. This was an interesting conversation I had with one of my other friends who also really loves Murderbot, and so I think she also like really related to Murderbot and saw Murderbot as like more like female basically. Obviously Murderbot is like not even not like non-binary and like very like that's, but she definitely was more on the like imagined them as like more female. And then I had read it on the first time when there was no TV show and definitely had perceived them more male, just by, and so it was interesting when we were talking about it because we used like every pronoun while talking about the book.
Yeah.
But I mean that's, I think it is a little bit how much you relate to Murderbot and like what, yeah, I feel like that's a little bit of it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm doing I did the reread of the first book, and the reread, the first time I read it was before the TV show had been made, and then the second time I read it was after the TV show had been made. So the second time I approached it, I kind of already had gendered Murderbot in my head because of what I had seen.
Yeah.
But the first time I read it, I had literally no gender thoughts about Murderbot. Like, I wasn't perceiving them on either end of the spectrum. Like, think iRobot, those just like really white robots that don't really have anything going on. That's what I thought Murderbot. I was like,
yeah,
Murderbot looks like just like the most gender ambiguous being you've ever seen. Like it could change it up depending on the day.
Fair enough.
Depending on the day and the outfit. And they were in armor the whole time anyway. So I was like, but now I'm reading it and I'm like, it's a boy. They're a boy.
Yeah.
But they would be really mad if I said that because they don't have any gender specific parts and they make you very clear of that.
Very, very clear about it, which is a hilarious part of it. Yeah, Murderbot's like, I do not have parts, and the only reason I would have parts if I was a sex bot. A lot of disdain about that.
I feel like
very not interested.
I think it's interesting too because like I wonder, Martha is on the like producers board, and I would love to be a fly on the wall of that conversation of like how they ended up where they were. Like, did Martha always perceive Murderbot as like a more male figure, or was there like an in-depth conversation about like which way they were going?
Yeah, I also wonder that, because the actor that they chose for Murderbot is definitely not who I would have chose. He's like kind of distinctive looking, in my opinion. I definitely imagine someone a little bit. I think it makes sense for the show, and this is like something you haven't seen the show. And one of the things it did, and we talked a little bit how Murderbot's very relatable, but I would say outwardly is not very jokey to like anybody that they're with. Like, the commentary is inside. And in the show, Murderbot is definitely a little more outwardly goofy is like the only way I can describe it. And it definitely, like, the first episode or two, I still loved it, like, still had a great time. But I was definitely like, this is not how I imagined Murderbot like at all. Like, he's a little sillier than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Especially because Murderbot's pretty angsty, especially like the even the internal, like, there's a lot of self-deprecation. Because I would not really say that Murderbot is silly, especially not in the first book. But even after that, there's like a lot of self-deprecation and humor in the books. But it's a lot of like Murderbot kind of has a lot of very complex feelings about what they are as it's like not, I guess not as a construct, and very aware of like atrocities that others of his construct have like committed, and feels a certain way about it, and then is grappling with this past that they think that they have. And yeah, and that was definitely not the show definitely leans into the humor aspect of it and is less about the I would say some of the like deeper thoughts about like humanity and self-discovery and determination, which I think are kind of some of the like most interesting parts.
And I feel
of the book.
and I feel like there's certain books where like translating into show is so like interesting because the main focus of the book is an internal monologue, right? I saw this with the Hunger Games, the prequel, a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Yeah.
Because in the book, Coriolanus is like mainly he's the narrator, and you're mainly getting his internal thoughts and monologues and feelings. You can see how misguided he is throughout the book, and how like his path to evil was happening throughout the book. That it made sense. And then I watched the movie, and that was one of the only it was the first Hunger Game movies that I genuinely was like, I don't think this really hit the mark for me. It was still a great like cinematic movie, like still did really good on that front, but you can't really catch how Coriolanus' descent happens because you're not in his head enough to know. And I feel like Murderbot I could see how that would easily happen, because there is funny moments, and they are relatable, and they are self-deprecating in a lot of ways that a normal person would be in their head. But when you're trying to portray that on screen, you have to be really like, is there narration in the show, or is it all like just like voice act like, is it like
there is some narration, but obviously less than what's in the book. And I definitely would say I like the show, but I would say tonally it's pretty different from the books, at least in my opinion. I guess other people will have their own opinions. So I definitely enjoyed it, but it was a different experience. And I think that they tried, because it is like visual, so the ensemble cast gets a lot more time and energy in the show, which I think is good, especially since that first group is the group that ultimately Murderbot ends up going back to, so it makes sense to kind of like lay down the foundation. But yeah, that was the tonal difference, I guess, was the main like hiccup I've had on the show, though. But it's still good.
Yeah.
It makes sense for a translation to a TV show why that had to occur. It just, I would say, it was different from some of the favorite parts of my book. I also don't love the portrayal. So like the group that Murderbot is with on that first planet, they're from this like a communist planet basically, and in the book, Murderbot's narration about them is that they are idealistic and somewhat naive, but mostly that they're idealistic, and that they did not believe that this was like people, like maybe it works in their one planet, but that like evil people exist and it doesn't work outside of it. And it's not at least I didn't read it as like talking down to them. And in the show, definitely it's more like these hippie people, you know?
Yeah.
Which I did not like, because so much of the book is about this like anti-capitalist rhetoric. And I think you can't sort of have that while also being like, hey, the one system in the book that actually gets it right and like isn't a capitalistic hellscape. You can't be like, well, they're just a bunch of hippies and they have all these like weird things that they do that are not in the books.
Yeah.
And so that is actually probably my major gripe about the show.
That's fair. I feel like I don't have Apple TV, so I probably won't watch the show anytime soon. But I could see how that would be a problem. I feel like an improperly written Murderbot, like an adaptation for TV. Not saying that this one is so bad that you can't ever like reconcile with what the book is and what the TV show is, but I could see how some of his commentary would be like misguided if not presented properly, like depending on what like the notes the author and the narrator got and all that stuff. Because like I never took it as him being like condescending or like looking like being super like ugh about them. I took him as being like humans are confusing, And these humans are even
Yeah.
more confusing to me because they're the first humans who act like people from a communist preservation that I've never been to.
Yeah, and like yeah, and they're like kind people who treated them like a person basically. Um to more than Murderbot had ever experienced.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, I think that is my only like real gripe, because the tonal shift makes sense, and I think that shift, that difference in the presentation of them, I think is a result of the tonal shift. I just wouldn't have gone
That route.
I don't know. I definitely wouldn't have presented them as like hippies. Like they have like this thing where they all had like, it wasn't like singing, but it was like they all like held hands in a circle, and I'm like, that doesn't happen. That's very giving like what a boomer thinks of like it's like what a boomer thinks of a commune, but the commune is actually a cult where everyone's high.
Yeah.
Like that's not what like preservation was supposed to be, like a socialist, like the very best of like, and it worked. Like the whole thing is that preservation is a functioning planet. It's small, but it's like fully functional. So it's like, yeah.
No, yeah.
Anyway, that's my gripe on the whole thing.
Yeah. No, that's fair. If you have access to Apple TV, watch the TV show. You don't have to read all 4 novellas. You can just read the first one, apparently, which is nice. I think it's interesting because I could see how the novella could be put into like a multi-episode TV show, but I would not have expected them to do that. Only because the novellas lend to a very episodic, like, Modern Family, where like there is underlying plots, but they're also very episodic. Like you don't have to watch every Modern Family episode in order to get the gist. I feel like the novellas, at the beginning at least, have that kind of appeal to them as well, where you would definitely have to follow the underlying story, but like if you caught something out of context, you wouldn't be so confused.
Yeah, I do agree.
But
yeah.
But I gave the first novella a 4 stars. Gave the second 3.5. I gave the third 4 stars, and I will probably give the fourth 4 stars as well.
I'm gonna rate the series as a whole because I truly don't have them separated enough in my mind to give individual ones, I think.
I can tell you what you rated the other ones if you would like, because every time I go to rate one, it tells me what you rated it.
Oh, I would love to hear what I rated.
You gave the first 2. You gave the first one 4 stars. You gave the second one 5 stars. You gave the third one 5 stars.
Damn.
And I haven't seen what you gave the fourth one, so you're on your own with that one.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting. Yeah, because I would probably give the series as a whole, like, probably 5 stars. I love it. I reread it quite a lot. And then that's so funny. This is really showing that my Goodreads, or not Goodreads because we don't use Goodreads anymore. My whatever app we're using now, which is Fable or Storygraph, depending on the day. My ratings are a little bit everywhere because I definitely think that the second book is of the first 4 is probably my least favorite.
Yeah, I just looked it up. You gave the 4th book also 5 stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second one you gave 5 stars. I think the first one's the only one you gave 4 stars. No,
That's
you
so
gave them all 5
interesting.
stars. I gave it 4 stars. It's confusing.
Oh, okay.
All 4 books got
There you
5 stars from you. So 5 stars really is your
Was
metric.
locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
But yeah.
want to go into spoilers? Because I have so many things I
Let's
want to
do
talk about in the
spoilers.
spoiler section.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay,
right.
yeah. Let's do
And
spoilers.
there's going to be a spoiler alert graphic right here.
Spoiler alert.
Okay, first book.
Okay.
My biggest thing with the first book is I think it is the perfect novella. I know I only gave it 4 stars.
Yeah.
And I think that might just be because in terms of sci-fi, it's not the sci-fi I usually go for, but still good. Still
Yeah.
good. And I think it is the perfect novella. I think it has the perfect amount going on, and the way that it's written, it felt both like I was experiencing a whole story, but at the same time, it did not drag at once.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's really one of the only novellas I've read a few now, and I would say the other one I've read that's like a full novella that's standalone is Song of the Wild Bill, which is a completely different
Mm-hmm.
thing. It is, I would say, pretty perfect. Because I feel like a lot of novellas are just like smaller books in series, which are fine. Usually those I'm like, this is just an extra chapter that the author released as a book. But yeah, I would agree. As much as I would love more of them and kind of gripe about the fact that they're so expensive for being so short, I do think that they're written so well in the novella format that you really can't be that mad
Yeah,
about it.
no, they're definitely very good. Um, I loved just like the first like opening and him being like, I tapped my entertainment feed, and like the amount of times Murderbot is just like, so I was doing my job, but I was also watching TV.
They're so me for
They
real.
are so me for real. There's like a couple quotes that Murderbot said that I was like, that is so relatable. It's unreal.
No, I know. I love it. I love the idea that Murderbot gained free will, and what they did was use it to slack off at their job. They were like, "I'm still working because what else am I gonna do?" But I want to watch TV while I do it, and honestly, that's relatable. Because I'm gonna be honest, I if I have free will mostly. Um, but if I had like a really free will, I don't think I would just randomly start killing people. Which seems to be a thing that people say happens a lot with like these like constructs. They're like, oh yeah, they start killing people. Murder Spot's like, I just kind of wanted to watch TV about it. Fair enough.
So that's like a little aggressive. I think what we should do is watch Sanctuary Moon.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know, yeah, Murderbot, go off, go off. Um,
Go off about it.
yeah, I think it's interesting because I think the beginning of the first novella is like it seems like it's already setting you up for the story that it's gonna tell, and then it doesn't tell that story because like it opens with them being attacked by some type of like fauna that's on this planet that they're like supposed to just be like learning about, and Murderbot saves them, like saves the two people that they're with, and gets them to safety, and that's like your first introduction to Murderbot and like what their function is for the team. And I fully was like bought in that this was going to be like the company didn't give you enough information, and that there's like these really dangerous fauna on this planet that we have to escape from. I fully did not expect the route it took after that, though.
No. Yeah. Because that is what it's set up to be, and that's not,
not
what it ends up being about.
Yeah.
I love it. They're fairly complex plots. They're like complex in that they're not really what you expect, but they're simple enough to follow in a novella that is pretty short and to the point. So I do quite enjoy that.
The only thing about the novella is you really can't tell the timelines of things. Like when you're reading the novellas,
That
like,
yeah.
I was reading them, and at one point it like dawned on me that it probably has been like 2 months since they saw Murderbot the last time in the books. In the fourth novella,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know why they're acting like he was gone for so long, or they were gone for so long. And then I was like, they have been gone for so long because they talk about like 20 cycles of sleep, and I'm like, oh, it's like 20 days.
I get it. Yeah, I will say that is my gripe with the novella form, especially because the order that they're published is not the order that they chronologically take place.
Are they not?
Especially with not in the first four are after the first four, there's some shenanigans, and let me tell you that did confuse me.
That's so fair.
While reading.
Yeah.
So that does get a little kooky.
Yeah.
But that's
I think
okay.
I have a crush on Dr. Mensa.
And that is so valid, to be honest.
I think upon her entrance into the story, I said, this character is the love of my life for some reason. And I have a crush on Dr. Mencha. So there's points where I'm like reading their interactions and I'm like, they should fall in love. And then I'm like, no, Murderbot would hate that. They shouldn't fall in love. She should fall in love with me.
Me, the reader.
I'll be another spouse. I'll be another partner. Also, the casual polyamory in this book is just so funny to me. Like,
I love.
Martha said, in a science fiction, highly progressed world, everyone would just be chill with everyone marrying everyone at the same time. And I have to disagree.
Everyone's...
I have to, based on the trends we're seeing now, I have to disagree.
It's not feeling like that's the future. Yeah, they were. Well, because that's the whole thing, is that, like, preservation is just supposed to be, like, really chill. There's no, I'm so sorry. Really chill. And,
I'm leaving it in. I'm just going to bleep it out so that everyone knows.
Okay. I have strong feelings about it. Yeah, because, like, they have all the polyamory, they have all the joint kids, they have the no money, and I love it that they're like, yeah, why would you do that? I was like, why would you? So that's a great question.
So right.
I love that they just make money for the entire, like, system by doing science. Honestly, my ideal. That's really how I would have liked this all to have worked out.
And
for
they're
me.
not the only ones like that. I think all three of the first 3 novellas, the groups that he ends up with are those more, like, social, like, groups. One
of the groups is being active. I mean, they're all sort of, but especially, I think one of the groups isn't necessarily from, like, a progressive planet, but they are progressive, and they're getting their data stolen by, like, a company.
Yeah. They had a lot of kids because they were all married to each other.
Yes.
I was like...
They were all married.
I was like, this group is such an odd group. And then Murderbot was like, they're all married to each other. And I said, that'll do it.
That'll do, and that will make you a little bit strange.
You know, that does change the dynamic. But I loved that team the most, I think. They were so, like... We just want our data back. And I've never related to something more.
As a grad student, that's so
I
real.
too think I would hire a security bot and go and risk my life if someone stole my PhD thesis from me.
That's so valid. I would be so mad.
Very upset. Very upset. Oh, so yeah, the first book I think is like, I feel like there's not a lot I want to say that needs to be said spoilery. That it just was a good book. I think the plot line is cool. I think the stakes are cool. I do love we get to see Murderbot for the first time be like around people who don't see them as just like a piece of technology. So like in the books they don't even believe in SecUnits really. Like they don't believe in having android that are solely for just like a job,
like service
like unwilling service, I guess, in their point of view. They're
basically like, that's slave labor, and from SecUnits' perspective it's pretty clear that that is essentially true, especially prior to them hacking the governor module.
I think there's something
it's pretty clear that is what's going on.
I think there's something kind of horrific in the books as you learn more and more the sentient level that SecUnits actually have, and then that their programming simply makes it so that they can't like maintain their free will. Like there's a quote in the second book that he says at one point. He's like, they needed to make us smarter, and the anxiety and depression were just a side effect of that. And I was like, that is so like sad. That's so sad. It hit me. I was like, well, they're so like, they made them smarter and now they feel, and then they're like, you just can't. Sorry.
I know it's honestly, the whole system is so barbaric, like, as you hear about it, because the first book you're like, yeah, that's not great, like, but I think to a degree it kind of feels like the governor module might control how they think, so it's less of a like, it's less of a physical restraint as it is a like mental one, which is not necessarily better. But then later you realize that they fully are thinking. There's a lot of thinking happening. It's that they're like, their governor module will hurt them or kill them if they break a bunch of rules, like if they go too far or if they have any action against their client, like all of this stuff. And you're like, that is horrific. It's not even that like they have been programmed to think a certain way. It's like they've been essentially shackled through their head to receive like pain if they do something out of line. Um, it's which is like, yeah, it was really kind of horrific.
That, and it's like they can still think, but then they have like slight programming that just like makes it so they can't even take it like a step farther, even without the pain. Like there were points where they were talking about how like SecUnits can't not respond to certain pings. And
Yeah.
the way they explained it, it was clear that they had the thought that they might want to not respond to the ping, but they didn't have the option not to. Like they had to. Like it was again like with an intact, what is it called, governor module, they would just do it on like programming, despite the fact that their thoughts might not align with what their action would be. And I thought that was like crazy.
Yeah.
Like the more you learn about it, the more you're like, this is actually a horrific situation to be in.
Yeah. And I think that does sort of go along with a lot of what the series is, which is sort of Murderbot figuring out not that they're human, but that they are not, like, that they're not a robot, essentially. Like, obviously they know that, but I think especially in the first few books, Murderbot is like, I am very separate from the people. That's not me. Like, I'm not that way. I'm not that. And then by the end, it's not that they're human, but it's a little bit more that they're like, oh, I have free will and I have things that I want to do that, are my own things, and I can feel a way about it if I want to. And, which is like, yeah, it's a nice progression to see. And it's kind of, it's subtle. It's like, doesn't hit you over the head. But it is, I think, one of the parts I really like about the series.
Yeah, I really like too that like it doesn't like completely subvert, like Murderbot isn't suddenly like, I just want to be like a completely different thing. I think that would take away from it a little bit. It's more like Murderbot being like, I don't hate protecting people. I need to do it on my own terms.
Yeah.
Like I need to be able to be doing it on my own terms, but I don't hate this.
Yeah. And I think that's really nice. Yeah. That they found meaning in the thing that they were already doing, and they're like, actually, this is all like, I like helping people. It was just that I needed to choose to do it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's good.
Yeah, he's like, they're like, I need to be the one who's choosing to put my life on the line here, not the other way around.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
So at the end of the first one is when Murderbot's like, so they buy Murderbot's contract after all the shenanigans on the planet that they're on happen. And they're like, you can come to our planet and we will just let you be a free robot android. And Murderbot's like, I don't believe you. I think you'll just keep me as a pet anyway, because I will never be able to just be a free citizen. So Murderbot's like, I'm dipping. And they dip, and I love that for them.
They definitely did. Yeah. They were like, because it was definitely set up almost as this ideal scenario where they could go back, Murderbot could go back to preservation and do their thing. And they were like, I don't really love that you technically own me. Even if you said you're going to let me go and do whatever I want, like, you would still technically own me. And I'm not really, I don't like it. And they just dipped. And we're like, I'm going to go do what I want to do. And I enjoyed that. I thought that was cool.
I thought it was interesting, the beginning of the next book, that you then like, the first thing that they want to know is if that, so they had like a catastrophic failure at one point and they killed a bunch of people, and the first thing they wanted to know was, did I do that on my own volition? Because they wiped my memory and I don't remember. Yeah. So my first stop, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, that's like the first thing that Murderbot's after, is basically like, did I actually kill all of those people, or is that just like what I think happened? Like, what was the actual situation here? And I mean, I think it totally makes sense. It's like very much like, even if they don't remember it, it's still like they had this extremely traumatic event happen, and they're like, actually, I'm gonna go see if that was really. And I think that that's kind of a very important point of like self actualization for Murderbot, because it was definitely was it something that they did that they would have to personally like atone for, or was it that they were made to do something horrific and they're just like another victim in this?
And that's when you meet Art, which stands for transport, no, research transport, which is funny. But I loved, so Art, as a character, I was like, this is kind of funny comic like banter between the two of them. But I think my favorite part about Art is that Murderbot, we kind of mentioned this in the earlier, where it's like Murderbot feels more human when they're with Art, but I think it's funny because Art approaches Murderbot the way Murderbot approaches all humans. Murderbot would be like, these humans are idiots and they don't have the things that I have so that they can make good decisions. And then Art is like, you're an idiot, and why are you not looking at it this way? And then Murderbot is like offended. They're like, why is this transport's an asshole? And he and then you're like, Murderbot, if you took one step back, you'd see that this is you. This is you to the humans. Yeah. I'm so sorry, Bessie. It's the pot and the kettle here.
It's happening. Yeah, because there's like this whole thing where Art's like, you have to change how you look, you're gonna get caught. And Murderbot's like, I don't wanna. And Art's like, you are going to. And they like argue about this. And it's so funny because it's definitely a moment that you could see Murderbot doing to a client. Be like, cut off your hair, you're gonna get seen, or something like that. And they would be like, no. Murderbot would be like, you're so f***ing stupid. But he like, Murderbot's like, I don't want to do that. Art's like, you're being dumb. You're being really dumb. You have to. You're gonna get caught on the security
Murderbot
cameras.
was funny. That scene was like, in my head, I pictured it as like a, you know, those like teen rom-coms, or like where they have like the makeover scene and they go to the mall and they keep trying on different outfits and they're like, no, and then they send them back. And it was like, in my mind, it was Art and Murderbot like staring at like augmentations, and that Art being like this and Murderbot being like, absolutely not. Absolutely. And they're like, this, and Art is like, you'll still get caught. And I personally loved the long debate. There's like I think at least a page dedicated to Murderbot being like, I don't want body hair. And Art being like, if you don't have body hair, no one's going to believe you're human. All humans have body hair.
You can't get around that one.
I'm so sorry.
Murderbot's like, this is a sensory nightmare.
Murderbot's like, I can just say that I waxed. And Art,
please.
Art you will not have that much access to that.
You cannot be all the time freshly waxed. It's unrealistic.
The other thing I really thought was funny is during this point is when Murderbot is like, okay, I have to pass as like an augmented human. I can't just like not pass as an augmented human at this point. So Murderbot now starts like analyzing themselves to then make themselves seem more human. And I think it's funny because it is inherently human to be self-conscious about the way you do things compared to other humans. So like the
Yeah.
Do I hold eye contact enough? Do I like do I fidget too much? Do I fidget not enough? Do people think it's weird when I just stare at them? Do people think it's weird that I don't look them in the eye? Like there's so much of that anyway. And then Murderbot is also starting to like look at those things. But I thought the funny thing is that there'd be moments where Murderbot's like, so I wrote a code so that I just like can turn it on. And I'm like,
that was so
I
funny.
wish I could do that. I wish I could make a code that was just like hold eye contact, because I can't do it, besties. Like,
yeah, the code that was like, yeah, this is my random walking code to like make sure that they walked in like a non-uniform way, and the like random fidgeting code, because like, yeah, humans don't stand that still. It's, first of all, it's giving Twilight, but and that is the first thing I thought of when that particular part come up. I was like, hold up, I've heard this before.
Is this Breaking Dawn?
You gotta fidget to be human. Fidget.
And it is so funny because humans don't stand very still. But I also think it's interesting because like even like between different like countries and different customs and all that stuff, you'll see very different like mannerisms and stuff like that do call out people. Like I think it's funny that Murderbot was like, I have to be human, and I'm in my mind I'm like, it is inherently impossible to be so human. Like it's just like not a thing. Like people, even in real life, like people will be like, you can tell someone's an American because they're leaning on something at all times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's something I didn't even think about, but we do lean a lot.
I know. I do. I can't help it. If there's a wall, I'm leaning on it. If there's there's anything I'm like,
why are we being
against
uncomfortable? Why do I have to be rail straight?
Yeah, excuse me. I want to relax.
But even that, so
my back.
Yeah. But that one was fun. I liked the second book. I didn't like when he found out that he was just part of like a hack. I didn't like that part, and I think I don't like that part because I didn't understand it at first. Like I was confused on what he was finding out, and then or what they were finding out. I keep seeing he and they during this. Like, blame the TV show, okay? Sorry.
Yeah. I will say that the gendered has happened a lot more now that the TV show has happened. A lot of the reviews are like reviews and recaps now fully have just he, and I'm like,
Murderbot has all pronouns. I'll start throwing in some she's.
Yeah.
Oh, like they're in the like the mine where the hack happened, and like I felt like there was so much build up for nothing to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I understand.
Like there were points where like they were like really building tension, but then the tension didn't actuate to anything. It was just like, this is creepy. Oh my god, something could be around the corner. There's nothing around the corner, and you're like. And then he was like, they were like, the SecUnits things are closed. Oh my god, are there SecUnits in there? And then he opened them and they were all empty. I said, this is stupid. And then at the end it was just, yeah, someone hacked it. We never found out who hacked it. We never found out why they hacked it. We never found out why, like, what happened to the other SecUnits that were in that thing with him. Like, did the hack ultimately end up the reason that Murderbot was able to hack their governor module? Like,
yeah, we have no idea.
What happened to the comfort bots? I'm confused about the comfort bots.
I think the comfort bots like sacrificed themselves to try to save people. I think that's the implication.
They did. I got that, but like, what allowed them to do that?
I don't know.
See, it's just all I think confusing to me.
Yeah, that one is definitely kind of open-ended. And I think it's a little bit because it would be too soon to wrap up that storyline of like what happened during this event. But it does just leave a lot of questions that you kind of go in and they don't super address after the like they do a little bit, but not as much as like as explicitly.
Like they get out of that area And then Art is just like, "Meh, you didn't do it. You can be happy now." And Murderbot's like, "What?" I'm like, still not happy because I did murder people. And Art's like,
it wasn't my choice, but it still happened.
And Art's like, "You're being irrational. Stop that."
What if you stopped?
I think, honestly, that was like, I also do appreciate that Murderbot will still just kill people.
Yeah, it does not.
They will just murk a person.
And I do appreciate that. Not because some people, I'm gonna be honest, in this universe, some people are trying to kill other people. And I appreciate being like, you can't, I'm not letting you kill my clients. Yeah. Not kill you first.
I also appreciate that it's like, this is what I've known, and this is what I do. And there is almost less moral ambiguity in the killings now to me, because the killings are, like, necessary.
I would, like, Murderbot is not just killing people willy-nilly. Very, like, killing people who are trying to kill other people and deserve it.
Mm-hmm. And most of the times,
so I definitely,
their clients are like, "Don't do that.
Don't do that."
And she, they, him, where they're like, yeah, we'll see about it. We'll see.
We'll see.
No promises.
Yeah. No promises. That's my choice. Yeah. I do agree. There's a few, like, little thing. This is slightly, I guess, a pivot from the straight up plot talk. There's, like, a few, I think, recurring motifs throughout the book that I really enjoy, and one of them that comes up a lot is the using his performance reliability as an indicator of their emotional state, which I eat it up every time. They're like, "That question was so uncomfortable. My performance percentage dropped 5 percentage points." And I was like, honestly, I get it. That is how I feel. If I could quantify it, I'm sure I would.
I think it's so interesting because I feel like Martha, like, really managed to, like, make an android that somehow captures the human experience.
Yes, exactly. It's so perfect.
Like, in all the ways,
it's truly so perfect.
In all the ways that it is an android, they are also very much, like, explaining the human existence.
Yes, exactly. It's so good.
That is so good. There was one part that I also, like, this is, like, less plot required, like, heavy, but at one point in the third book, Murderbot's just doing a bunch of stuff. Like, they are just, like, on X Games mode trying to keep track of all these things, and they build a new neural network. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever read.
Yeah. This is so cool. I love their little drones that they use to look at people. It's so good. I eat up every time they're like, "Yeah, I was watching him through the security cameras because I did not want to have eye contact." And I was like, if I could, I would too. I understand.
Murderbot being anti-eye contact, same, bestie. The way I know what everyone's ears look like and none of their eyes is, I can't tell you your eye color. And we've been friends for 5 years.
5 years.
And I don't know your eye color.
It's blue.
I can tell you what earrings you were wearing on any given day.
That's fair. I'm very big on the I pick one eye to stare at. Though I will say I feel like we have a lot of conversations where neither of us are looking at each other. We're just staring off.
We're just sitting next to each other, looking in opposite directions, talking about, like, ethical consumerism.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
That's just how it is. Yeah. Everyone knows. It's honestly, I feel like that's half the reason I love a long car ride with somebody. I'm like, time to have a deep conversation with zero eye contact. We're not gonna look at each other, but we're gonna talk about the deepest drama.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You get it. You get it. Like, there's no point
I get
in
it.
looking
I
at
get
each
it.
other while we talk about this. Actually, I'd prefer if you never looked at me again. Thank you. But yeah, the I feel like the messages in the Murderbots books are very heavy-handed, but not in an annoying way, which I kind of appreciate, because you are working with 150 to 170 pages. There's not a lot of room to be very poetic and subtle and lyrical about it. Sometimes you just have to be heavy-handed, but there were never moments where I was like, this is being force-fed to me. Feel like it was just very blatantly the point was said.
Yeah. And the thing is that the points I feel like are made in realistic ways. Like, it doesn't feel force-fed because it's very clear that this was a consequence of some actions, you know? Which I feel like help the, like, moral, I guess, of the story be not preachy.
Yeah. There are, like, actively moments of, like even, like, the comments on consumerism. Like, there will be, like, subtle things, like, the amount of ads that, like, Murderbot is, like, sifting through to get information, and, like, talking about, like, how, like, certain stations that the, like, transport units can land in, like, sell their, like, board space to just advertisements, so, like, everyone is being bombarded by just, like, constant advertisement for different things. And then, like, the amount of, like, barriers that have
and that, like, obscures the safety messaging and stuff like that.
And, like, the amount of, like, work that has been put in to remove any human interface when it comes to, like, buying things. Like, you can literally do everything without like any human contact. But then there's, like, the more heavy-handed stuff, right? Like, where in, like, specifically the fourth book too, Murderbot like super starts to talk about how, like, the companies are just in it for the highest bidders. Like, the highest bidder who's willing to pay the most money to make it the way that they want it to be is always going to win. Like, you're watching, like, this Preservation Ox, which has, like, a true case against Grey Crisis, or Grey Chris, I forget what it's called.
Grey Chris.
That, like, they have, like, a true case. Like, they were doing something wrong. They were murking people, and this is not the first time they've done it, and they do plan to continue doing it. And they've come, and they have evidence. They're like, no, we know this happened. We have video evidence of this happening. Like, they're caught. And they're still not really feeling the repercussions of that because they have more money than Preservation Ox, which is something that happens in real life, too. It actually happens. Enough, you can make things go away. Or if you can pay enough, you can make it so that you're not feeling the ramifications of what you've done. And, like, they literally have, like, actively kidnapped, like, a political figure from Preservation Ox, and all they did was just, like, pay off the landing place to be like, don't let them land here. And the other company's like, we're not doing anything because we're not getting paid enough to do anything. And that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, like, all of these things, you can see how they would happen. Like, sure, it's further than you'd probably see today, but you can see that in a future where there's less, like, to be, like, so real, like, in a hypothetical future where you can do interplanetary travel that quickly, it would be almost impossible to have any sort of far-reaching legislation across that. Like, you just, like, administratively, it's a nightmare. So it's like, it makes sense that basically you have all these corporations who are essentially laws upon themselves, and the only thing the only real incentive, or even, like, or I guess, like, or internal policing they have, is to make the most money. And so really, like, any risk taken, something like kidnapping Mensa, it's an acceptable risk to take, because they're like, yeah, well, even if it, we'd only lose this much money even if it goes badly. We have, we have a lot more to gain from doing it.
The way that it like captures that like the human life has deteriorated, like the value of a human life has deteriorated so much because of money, because Murderbot like murks a lot of people, and like most of the time they're not even mad that he murked people. They're mad that they've like lost equipment.
Yes, exactly. And like Murderbot, who we know obviously, because we're in their head, but even like they know, because Murderbot is made of cloned material, so they know that this is a person who can think. They treat all of the constructs as essentially just equipment, which is, it's like, and that's not really that much different than how they treat people, who are essentially just kind of like cogs in a machine, were very replaceable. Yeah, it's, what it reminds me a lot of? It reminds me of, it all comes back to Legend. The like eastern half of the US in Legend, that was like the, instead of the militaristic future, it was the techno-capitalist future, which is pretty similar to what the sort of future that Murderbot presents. Yeah, I feel like there was a good amount of similarities between the outcomes that you were seeing in that book and the outcomes that are described in Murderbot.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because I feel like we are people who love like a dystopian world, and I see sometimes people with like discourse of being like all dystopians are the same, and I'm like, it's almost like they're all commenting on the flaws that they can see currently.
Exactly. And like that's the thing. And they do adapt, you know what I mean? Because you did have a lot, especially older dystopia, are heavily militaristic, because when it started getting popular, you were in a phase where that seemed like a much more plausible future, like things around the Cold War, and people were like, feels pretty likely that like everything is going to be militarized, or we're all going to go up and smoke one day and not know about it. And that was sort of the dystopic future you had, that sort of like barren wasteland. Now people, I think, are sort of seeing this, and you get more of these sort of like techno-capitalist dystopic futures where people are like, what would happen if like we never check any technology and sort of just let it go as far as possible, and never check any corporation and let it have as much power as possible? And that's sort of the direction politically that's happening.
I think it's interesting too, because now I feel like some of them are starting to comment on conservatism too, and like extreme conservatism causing dystopia, and I'm like,
yeah,
y'all are cooking with something right
guys.
Here. Someone's cooking with gas.
Did you see? Did you see Mickey? He's not listening.
I know what movie it is with Mickey Robert 13. Pattinson.
Yeah, with Robert Pattinson.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Because that is also a like it is basically a dystopia that's commentary on conservatism.
I should watch it. It's one of my fave.
It's good. Like, I enjoyed it. It was
The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, it's a definitely different vibe.
Oh yeah, definitely. But The Handmaid's Tale is like one of the ones that I think of like dystopia through conservatism.
Yeah, I love dystopia. I think just like we've talked about it, we both love dystopia as a genre. Mostly, honestly, I think it is such a good vehicle to understand current events, to be honest, and I think you can tell a lot about what is currently happening in the world and the people's perception of what's currently happening in the world by the dystopia that is prevalent at the time. And I think that it is obviously Hunger Games sort of inspired then a bunch of a dystopia that was pretty similar to it itself, but I think that even the fact that it was so easily and readily consumed said something about the state of especially teenagers at that state, like at that point in time, and they were kind of disenfranchised, and that's kind of continued.
Yeah, there's been and then the resurgence of the Hunger Games, and I think it's interesting because I feel like we all read it when we were young, because those came out when we were pretty young, and we read them all, and I think everyone could on the surface relate to it, right? Like they could on the surface get the point of the book and feel like, yeah, I'm disenfranchised. And I think then everyone got older and they reread the books, and then they were like,
they were like, oh,
like now I'm really getting like I've felt these perils now, and now I'm getting it. So let's give our final wrap up thoughts. Before we give our final wrap up thoughts, R.I.P. Mickey.
Okay.
R.I.P. Mickey. I'll miss you forever. You were the best bot.
I cried quite a lot when she died.
You were the best bot, and your owners were the best owners, and you weren't a pet. You were just your own person.
No.
And that's all I gotta say. I had to make sure that was said, because I'll miss Mickey forever.
I agree.
And a part of me hopes that she'll come back, and I know she won't, but I wish she would.
And that's fair. That's fair. That was a very heartbreaking scene. Really tugging at the heartstrings.
Like, damn, they got me crying.
Crying about a
crying
robot.
At my Kindle about a robot at 2 a.m. But yeah. So final thoughts. I think overall a good series for me. It's definitely like a 4-star series, but I think that's just like content wise, it's just not my type of sci-fi. Which also I'm starting to realize I think I like sci-fi a little less than I thought I did. I think I'm more of a fantasy. The space doesn't necessarily do it for me all the time.
Not speaking to you.
Okay. And that's the end of the podcast. Bye. Well, we're never making another episode.
I was trying to say this space isn't speaking to you. Not that I am personally not speaking to you, but I do see how that sounds like I was saying that we're breaking up.
I said, space doesn't speak to me, and you said, I'm not speaking to you. And I went, all right. And that was the end of our podcast. Please don't expect any more episodes. I know last week we talked about the summer reads. We'll never tell you about them again. You'll never know.
You'll never see it.
But yeah, I think it's a good series. I will be finishing it once I get the longer form book off of library holds.
I would think for me it's a 5-star series. I love it, but I also adore sci-fi. I specifically adore space. So it's very much in the realm of things I like. I also think it's sci-fi that's relatively accessible. It's not as some sci-fi is really, they go little, like you can tell the author has a tech degree or did a lot of research and they go a little crazy with it, and Murderbot does not fall in that trap. It's pretty easy to read, which I enjoy. So I love it. Characters, I adore Murderbot. That is my soulmate.
Don't tell your husband.
He's here, not listening. So yeah, so I will keep reading. I have to read the newest book because I haven't read it yet. But I am borrowing it, so it's on the list of things I'm going to read at some point.
Fair enough.
Eventually.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So what are we covering next week?
The Cruel Prince, the Filk of Air series is next week.
Woo! Hell yeah.
It's fun. We've both already read it, so it'll be a fun little recap for both of us.
Catch up. I just finished it. I just finished the reread too.
Oh, nice.
Like a few days ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was all right.
Yes. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.
We'll
flirt with your friends, as we always say.
For sure, flirt with your friends.
Yeah.
Even though Murderbot wouldn't like it, you should still flirt with your friends.
Flirt with your friends because Murderbot can't.
Exactly.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Crisis of Readers.
If you are enjoying our content, please subscribe.
And we will be here every Wednesday